everyone, today we're here with you to give you some updates on the battle map and how the fronts are heating up. War is not won by claims or assumptions alone. The consistency of these claims or assumptions greatly affect the war. So, in particular, the inability of the claimants to prove themselves directly harms them. When the leaders of a fighting army fail to fulfill the expectations created in the army by their patriotic rhetoric, it is a harbinger of defeat. Putin, the initiator of the war in Russia and Ukraine, lied to Russian soldiers and Russian people with his grandiose claims. The most important of these lies was that Russia would be victorious in a very short time. When these claims, which Putin made almost every day, did not materialize, it created a great deal of doubt in both the army and the Russian people. This doubt, of course, led to the question, is Russia losing the war? The fact that the Russian authorities did not give a clear answer to this question reinforced the doubts of the Russian soldiers who faced Ukrainian soldiers every day and suffered extraordinary losses and greatly reduced the belief in the war in the Russian army. There are unconfirmed reports from local sources that Russian soldiers are fleeing in the front line and leaving their weapons and ammunition behind. So, is Russia really losing the war? Let's take a look at the latest situation with maps. The Pioneer continues to report on the Russia-Ukraine war, and our only goal of this work, which requires intense and hard effort, is not to leave you unaware of the front line. In order for this work to continue, we have a small request of you. We expect you to support us by using the Super Thanks button below the video. Now, let's move on to the report. On the map, we can see the regions occupied by Russia and liberated by Ukraine since the first day of the Russian-Ukrainian war. On this map, the green areas are the areas liberated by the Ukrainian army with great effort, and the red areas are the ones occupied by Russia since its invasion attempt in 2022. And the burgundy-colored areas are the areas previously occupied by Russia. We can clearly see that the green areas on the map have increased since our last report. They determine the struggle of the Ukrainian army on the front line has started to bear fruit. Russia has withdrawn from almost 70% of the areas it occupied and continues to do so. At many points, reports that the Russian army has started to take a defensive position are being transmitted from local sources to the world press. There is a very remarkable development, especially regarding Russia's defense position, but let's first focus on regional developments. Over the past week, the Russian army has carried out limited ground attacks on the Crimea line. In these attacks, which were nothing but a waste of ammunition, the Russian army, of course, could not make any gains. Therefore, Russian troops in the region have taken a defensive position and are waiting for the orders. As you can see, the area has very natural conditions for soldiers to take a position. Ukrainian soldiers know how to use these natural conditions to their advantage. After the Russian army stopped its limited attacks, the Ukrainian army mobilized in this region. Ukrainian troops in this region infiltrated into the area controlled by Russian positions, especially using forested areas. Conducting operations in this area southwest of Crimea, Ukrainian troops managed to drive Russian army units out of the occupied territories. Ukrainian troops who managed to drive Russian troops out of the region with a small number of troops were reinforced without delay. New Ukrainian troops have arrived in the region. It is claimed that Ukrainian troops in the region are preparing for a new offensive and will soon surround the city of Crimea. The reinforcement of Ukrainian troops in the region increases the accuracy of this claim. On the other hand, intense clashes continue uninterruptedly in the city of Bakhmut, which has turned into a knot. The determined resistance of the Ukrainian army in the city is forcing the Russian commanders to take radical decisions. There are reports that Russia is intensively deploying troops to the Bakhmut line in these occupied regions. In our previous map reading, we talked about a possible Ukrainian offensive. Many military experts and analysts believe that the possible Ukrainian offensive will take place along two lines, the northern and southern fronts. As you can see, the city of Bakhmut, which Russia is stubbornly trying to occupy, is right in the middle of these two fronts. Moreover, since Russia has been unable to recruit new troops from the mainland and compensate for its losses, it has been deploying troops to the Bakhmut line, especially from the northern region. While we have reported on the promising developments for the Ukrainian army in Bakhmut, we think we should also report on a few disappointing developments for the Russian army. This area is heavily populated by Russia's mercenary force, the Wagner Group. In many of the conflicts that the Ukrainian army is engaged in this region, it is not fighting with the Russian armed forces but with the Wagner mercenary militia. There is a growing rift between the Wagner Group and the Russian government. Wagner leader Prigozhin's failure to reach an agreement with Kremlin on the recruitment of few soldiers has raised suspicions that there is a problem between Wagner and the Russian Federation. Let's see what Moscow has to say about this issue in the coming days. While protecting Bakhmut, the Ukrainian army continues to reinforce its other fronts. There are rumors that new support from the West and the US, especially tanks, will be deployed to the occupied northeastern Ukraine. The frequency with which these rumors have been voiced confirms our theory of a northern and southern fronts for a possible Ukrainian offensive. But what happens if Russia is surrounded on two fronts? As you can see on the map, the Russian military presence is largely concentrated in the central parts. It is possible to say that if the Ukrainian army's offensive has a north-south front, the Russian army will be trapped between the two fires. So this strategy will actually give Ukraine two advantages. The first one is the opportunity to completely destroy the Russian army, and the second advantage is to be stronger in a possible peace negotiation with Russia. At the beginning of our report, we told you about an important development in Russia's defense posture. Many experts have repeatedly stated that Crimea is the key to war and victory. The Ukrainian President Zelensky has repeatedly said that the war starts in Crimea and will end in Crimea. The recent intensified offensive of the Ukrainian army on Melitopol and its increasing presence on the borders of Crimea have greatly alarmed Russia. The Russian army is carrying out new deliveries to the occupied southern Ukrainian territory. The aim of these deployments is to reduce Ukraine's growing military presence in the southern regions and to prevent Ukraine's ultimate goal of liberating Crimea from occupation. It is possible to say that Russia is in great fear, especially in this region. Ukraine's frequent use of the spring offensive rhetoric has panicked Russian decision-makers. Panic-stricken decision-makers seem unable to read the developments logically. Analyzing the situation from a narrow perspective, Russian officials are trying to protect one region while almost sacrificing another. The Ukrainian army reads and analyzes the situation of the Russian army well, forcing the Russian army to stay on the move along the north-south line. The Ukrainian army seems to be going on a major offensive after a major war of attrition. So you can share your thoughts on the war and the latest developments with us, the Pioneer theme. And thank you for watching this video.